This is a new ministry which is just starting. Reverend Hood needs your help in sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and His power throughout the world. If you would be so kind as to send a donation to Nicholas Hood III Ministries of any amount, Reverend Hood will send you a free complimentary copy of his book of original personal prayers and beautiful photographs entitled The Test, The Strength, The Endurance, and The Way Out. We appreciate your support, and in this way, you can partner with Reverend Hood in sharing the good news of Jesus throughout the world. Please make your check out to Nicholas Hood III Ministries and mail it to 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan, 48201.
You know why I really love Nick Hood as a minister? I watched his father do it, and he took over for the church, and he was one of us, but he really turned out to be a great minister. I know it's hard, and that's something that I know that all ministers may not be doing what they're doing because for the right reasons, but I know it's hard. I know he's a beautiful man, and we've been knowing each other for over 50 years. I believe in him. He's inspired me in so many ways to do what I'm doing and try to be the best at it. Make sure you watch Nick Hood's Ministries. You'll never be the same.
Welcome to Nicholas Hood III Ministries, a ministry of hope, spiritual inspiration, personal power guided by Christian love. May the power of God's Holy Spirit fall upon you as you sit back and enjoy today's program. I introduce you now to Pastor Nicholas Hood III.
Today I want to talk about blessings, and in particular, everybody has a blessing. Matter of fact, you and I have multiple blessings from God. But the real question is, what will you do with your blessing? And the theme that I'm working with today is simply, do not run from your blessing. I want to tell you a Bible story. You can open your Bibles right now to 1 Samuel chapter 10. And in 1 Samuel chapter 10, there's a story about a man who ran from his blessing. His name is Saul. And Saul, as you may or may not know, becomes the first king of Israel. But his kingship is almost unlikely. The way it starts is Saul is described as the son of a man named Kish. And his son had donkeys, multiple donkeys who had escaped. And they ran away. And so Kish, the father, asked Saul, the son, to go find his donkeys. Now, the donkeys probably were not pets. In those days, the donkeys, horses were animals. They were beasts of burden, but that's how people made their money, hauling their crops or whatever. And so Kish, the dad, asked Saul, the son, to go track down the donkeys and to bring the donkeys home. Saul goes away looking for the donkeys. He has a young man with him, and while they're on the way, they can't find the donkeys. So Saul says, I understand that there's a seer or a prophet, a person who can tell the future in this area. Let's see where the seer is, the prophet is. He doesn't even know him by name. He said, let's go find the seer, and maybe he can shorten this search for the donkeys. He can show us where the donkeys are. And so they ask around, and somebody said, the seer is over there. And so they go over to the seer, who happened to be Samuel. And they go to Samuel, and they ask Samuel if he can help them to find the donkeys. And Samuel begins to talk with Saul and the young man, and Samuel, unbeknownst to Saul, he comes up to Saul And he says, you are going to be the first king of Israel. And Samuel says that, and as he says it, Saul is amazed. Because at this point in the history of Israel, they didn't have a king. Israel was a loose federation of 12 tribes. The 12 tribes of Jacob, the sons of Jacob. And Samuel, he says this, and when he says it, Saul looks at him and he says, what do you mean? I'm going to be the first king of Israel. He said, I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. And he said, and my clan, or my subgroup in the group of Benjamin, is the smallest group in all of Benjamin. He said, and Benjamin is the smallest of all the tribes of Israel. You know, what makes you think that from my tribe, which is the least of all the 12 tribes, is somehow going to be the producer of a king? And Samuel tells him, he said, you are the one who God has chosen. And he said, look, I've got to go find my father's donkeys. And Samuel tells Saul, he said, forget about the donkeys. He said, the donkeys have already been found, and now your father is worried about you. He said, you can go home, go back to your dad. He said, but I'm going to call together all the tribes of Israel, and they are going to select you as the first king. And so Saul goes back home, but as he goes home, Samuel puts out the call to all of Israel that there is going to be effectively a conclave. And in that conclave, they are going to choose a king by lots. And this is an ancient mechanism that they use where they would pull stones out of a container or something. And from this pulling of stones, they would look for divination. They would look for a word from the Lord for direction as to whom should be picked as the king. And so on the day when all the 12 tribes have gathered, now we're probably talking about thousands of people, the tribes have all come together for this selection of a king. And they go through the first process, and they find out that the next king, or the first king, will come from the tribe of Benjamin. And so then I guess at that point, everybody steps back, and they go again through this process of casting lots. And they're looking for stones from the bag to try to figure out what is God saying to them. And through that process, they get to Saul's little subgroup. And so then they go through the process again. They put stones in the bag. And my reading of the Bible sounds like by the time they get to the small group, there's a rock in there that would represent each of the men. And in the process of selecting a rock and looking for some sign from God as to, from these rocks, who will the next king or the first king be, they go into the bag, but there's no sign from the Lord. And then the Lord begins to say, there's someone else, and he's not here. And then Samuel finds out that Saul is hiding in the baggage. That's what it tells us. So, they have baggage there, and I guess rightfully so, because remember, everybody from every tribe has come from all over Israel. And, just like people traveling today, there would be baggage. If you take an airplane or a train or a bus, there's always baggage. And so they go to the baggage, and there is Saul, who is hiding in the bags. And when he comes out of the bags, from under the bags, the Bible tells us he was head and shoulders taller than everybody else who had gathered together. And at that point, Samuel looked at him, and all the people said the same thing. This is the king of Israel. This is who our king will be. He was his, and think about modern day criteria for who gets elected president. Saul is described as taller than everybody else, and he was good looking. And think of the number of people who get chosen to do something because they're tall and good looking. But that's how the first king of Israel is picked. But the point that I want to make in my little message today is he tried his best not to get picked. He is hiding under the baggage. And I wonder how many of us today, how many of you looking at this program today have been hiding under the baggage? I wonder how many people right now looking at this have missed a blessing because you were running, hiding, hoping that you wouldn't get picked, hoping you wouldn't get hired, hoping you wouldn't get chosen, hoping that somehow, some way, people would look the other way and you wouldn't get involved. But God has a way of finding us. And just as Saul is hiding from God, God reached down from heaven, proverbially pulled back the bags that Saul, with his big self, he's a big guy. He's the biggest guy around. So, God could see him even though he was hiding. And in like manner, God can see you when you're hiding. God can see when you're putting on airs. God can see you when you make yourself look worse because you don't want to get chosen. God can see you when you are running from your blessing. God has given you a voice to sing, but if you're running from that blessing, you don't want to be in the choir. God has given you the capacity and the potential to be a lawyer, maybe a doctor, but you run in a different direction because you don't want that. And it's not that you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer, but you're afraid. Some of us are afraid of success. And because we're afraid of success, we are reluctant to invest. We're reluctant to invest not just our money, but we're reluctant to invest our time, our thoughts. We're reluctant to invest in love. You can't grow love unless you invest in love. And some of us can't get started in love because we're too busy running from love. We are hiding from our blessing. And I want you to think about this theme of hiding from the baggage, hiding under the baggage, hiding from your blessing. I'm going to take a little break. And when I come back, I'm going to talk a little deeper about hiding under the baggage, hiding from your blessing in God, and what we can do about that. So think about it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll be right back.
America used to be considered a godly country. It doesn't seem to be that way to me now. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but it's so many things they're okaying for the wrong reasons. There's not godly reason. People need to really open up the Bible, the Bible, and look in it and really get it into their heart. And this, the way Reverend Hood is doing this is a comfortable way. It's not forcing anything on people. It's a comfortable way and a loving way for it to continue to move in that direction.
The way Reverend Hood presents it, you can understand it, and it makes you want to delve into the Bible even more so that you can see more because it seems like the program goes off too fast. We need the bread of life.
We really do.
These days we need it more than ever. And Reverend Hood's ministry on TV is giving us our bread.
And the point that I'm making is that in everybody's life, at some point, there's a plan B. God is talking. Today I'm talking about don't run from your blessing. And the Bible lesson is from 1 Samuel chapter 10, the story of Saul, the first king of Israel. And the point I was making on the first half of this show is that when Samuel the prophet anoints Saul, he actually tells him, you are going to be the first king of Israel. And then he pours oil on him. And the Bible says, and he kissed him. That was Samuel's way of saying, I'm giving you the blessing. And let me paint a picture of why this is so significant. Number one, Israel has never had a king. Up to this point in its history, Israel was a loose federation of 12 tribes. And so for Samuel, the prophet, to say to Saul, I choose you, I'm appointing you to be the first king of Israel, Saul says, no, I don't see myself being king. And we might ask ourselves, well, why does Saul say, I don't want to be king? And I can only guess. But number one, maybe it was because Israel had never had a king. And number two, related to Israel not having a king, because Israel had not had a king, there's no role model for what a king really looks like, what a king acts like. There's no precedent for how the people will respond to a king. And so because the answer is no to all of those questions, it made sense for Saul to say, no, I don't want to be the king. And he doesn't want to be the king because he can't envision being the king. And in like manner, you and I sometimes miss a blessing because we just have no frame of reference. And what are some, let me give you some real life examples of this. There's some people who are reluctant to stick to school, reluctant to try to get a college degree. And, you know, one, in many cases, they don't have any examples of anybody in their family who's been to college. And, you know, if you don't know anybody who's ever been to college, it might be very easy to say, no, I don't want to go to college, because you can't envision it, you can't see it. Even though the research shows that people who get a college degree in a long run over a lifetime typically make much more income than those who don't. And I'm not saying that to put anybody down, I'm just using it as an example that even in today's world, there are many people, I bet you there's some looking at this program right now, who had a chance to go to college, but you looked at it and said, no, I don't want to do it. And in many cases, it's not because you thought college was a bad thing, but simply because you have no point of reference. And in the case of Saul, Saul does not have a reference framework for being king. And so he says, no, he's running from it. And there's some of us who run from our blessings. I think in my own life, I was probably running from my blessing. You know, I'm a minister now. This year is my 49th year of being a pastor. 39th as pastor of a church, 49th as an ordained minister. But frankly, I never seriously thought about going into the ministry until my third year of college. And that was almost by accident. Before, you know, choosing to go into the ministry, what I was really doing was playing music. I played R&B, rhythm and blues music, that same kind of music you hear on the radio, you know, artists like James Brown, the Parliament, the Isley Brothers, Santana, War, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You know, those were the kind of songs that we played. Even the Beatles, you know, Eleanor Rigby, and some jazz tunes. And that's really what I thought I would do for the rest of my life. And I was perfectly happy doing that. But along the way, my father, who was a pastor of a church here in Detroit, he just asked me, he said, since you've come back to Detroit to play music, he said, why don't you help me build a youth group for junior high youth? And I said, okay, I'll do it. And the funny thing that happened to me was the more, and I only did that for 2 years, my third and fourth year of college, but the more fulfillment I got from working with these young people, the more I began to look closer at the music. And at the same time I was looking closer to music, some of the guys I was playing with started dabbling in drugs and doing other anti-social kind of behavior and dangerous, frankly, dangerous behavior. And I began to ask hard questions. I said, if we won a recording contract, we're making $1 million a year, would I be happy? And the answer I came up with was a resounding no. I would not be happy. I said, I don't know if I'd be happy with these guys if I was a millionaire with them. I'm not sure I would want to be happy. And that's the point where I made the decision to go into the ministry. And I'm a little ashamed to say I can't claim to be a child preacher. I can't claim that the Lord anointed me. Maybe the Lord anointed me, but I just wasn't aware of it. But I can't say that the Lord plucked me out from the ranks in elementary school. I met a young man, I'm going to bring him on the show in a few weeks, who told me, and he reminded me, I was there, that he preached his trial sermon when he was 14. And I can't claim that. I didn't preach any trial sermon at 14. But I'm so glad that my dad asked me to work with children. And the children I work with were 12-year-olds. They were in junior high school. And it's interesting, now that I'm in my 49th year of ministry, some of the leaders of my church, the chairman of my trustee board, and a young man who's helping me to do a big renovation project at the church, I met them when they were 12 years of age. And I'm taking them to camp and taking them on black college tours. And the point that I'm making is that that experience defined me as a minister and really set me on the right track. And and so by the time I got to the end of college, I said, if this band doesn't have a recording contract, I said, by the time I graduate, I said, I'm out. And I was out, and I stepped out of the band. We sold our sound system to the church, of all things. It was a pretty good sound system for its day in 1972, 73. And I never looked back. And I've never regretted that decision. But to be honest, I guess somebody could look at my life and say, Nick Hood, you were hiding from your blessing. And so I'm just, we only got a minute or two left in this show today, but I just want to remind you to ask yourself this question. Have I been hiding from my blessing? And what are those blessings? If God has blessed you to cook, are you cooking? If God has blessed you to do art, are you drawing and painting? If God has blessed you as a mother or a father, what are you doing with the children that God has given to you? If God has given you a man, a husband, if God has given you a wife, a woman, if God has blessed you with love, what are you doing with that love? Are you growing in love, or are you placating love? Are you building in love, or are you just flatlining in love? Some people flatline in love. And what I mean by that is you come home to each other every day, every night, but you're not doing much. And I'm not just talking about physical intimacy, but a lot of people have figured out how to function together, but they're really not talking very much. A lot of people, have figured out how to pay the bills together, but they're not happy. And not exuberant in their love. They have a functional love. And functional love has its value. It has its place. I don't want to diminish that. But it is important, since God has given us one life to live here on earth, to ask ourselves, how can I maximize joy? How can I maximize feeling good about myself? How can I build on the love that God has put in my life? I pretty much had to wrap this up today, but I just want you to not hide from your blessing. And it is a blessing that you've watched this program all day today. And I thank God. You don't know how gratifying it is for me to know that you have taken time out of your busy schedule. You didn't have to watch this worship service today, but you have. And that lets me know that there's a value in what I'm doing. It lets me know there's a reason why I'm doing this, and that it's important. And I'm not hiding from my blessing. I'm doing this right now. This is something I wanted to do starting at age 24. Right after I got ordained, I was asked to do a television program for free. But right now, I'm trying to build on this ministry, and I need your help. And if this ministry means something to you, if you've gotten something out of the program today, asking that hard question of yourself, am I hiding? Am I running? Am I ducking from my blessing? I want you to think about blessing this program. And you can bless this worship program, number one, by praying for me. When you say your little prayers at night tonight, pray for Nick Hood and Nick Hood Ministries. Just pray for it, that the Lord will continue to walk and talk and work through me to bless you and others around the world. But number two, if you find it in your heart and you can bless this ministry financially, I'd like you to write a check to Nick Hood Ministries, 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan. Look at the address on the screen, and I'm sure there will be a blessing for you. Don't run from your blessing. Don't hide from your blessing. Don't duck your blessing, but prepare yourself for that blessing. And who knows, maybe it'll be for such a time as this that God will call you to kingship in your own land. God bless you. God keep you. And thanks so much for watching today, praying for me. And remember, I'm praying for you. God bless.
Thank you for watching today's program. We hope you've been blessed in a powerful way. Just knowing you took the time to watch today's broadcast is a great encouragement to Pastor Nick Hood. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, we ask that you mail a tax-free donation to Nicholas Hood Ministries at 4535 Chrysler Drive, Detroit, Michigan, 48201.